If you can have your homeowners or renter's insurance, car insurance, and any other items that you have, ATVs, RVs, if you can have them under the same carrier, it can save you 15, 20% sometimes.
One thing I want to talk about too, because I feel like this is a fairly generic term. It's general. Everyone understands it maybe, but umbrella and umbrella policies. What exactly does this mean? Is this the same as bundling?
Yeah, I didn't laugh at you. I laughed with you.
You can laugh with me,
I laughed
please.
with you.
Or at me. I'm fine.
No, I'm not laughing at you. The umbrella is a term, it's a generic term for what's called excess liability coverage.
Okay.
So on your homeowner's insurance, you have enough money to cover the replacement cost. I mean, enough coverage to cover your replacement cost on your property, the home, the shed in the back, the fix the swimming pool, the fence, okay? That's for you. You also have coverage for people who come to visit you and get hurt at your property. Or when you're out doing something and you hurt somebody and you're not driving, you're swinging a golf club and you hit somebody, you have a liability now. And so let's say that you have $500,000 of liability coverage on your homeowner's policy. Okay, what happens when the claim is for $750,000 or $600,000 or $1 million? Say that something that you did caused a death, an accidental death. Then the plaintiff attorney, the people representing the person that got hurt, are going to sue you. And when they do, they're going to seek all avenues, including, how much liability coverage do you have on your homeowner's policy? It's $500,000 in this example. Well, that's not enough for what they're after, and maybe justifiably so. And so in cases like that, excess liability can be purchased before the claim.
Okay.
Before the claim. And so you can get $1 million of liability coverage for a lot less premium than in the original layer of liability coverage. So they call that umbrella because it sits over, as an umbrella does, the underlying coverage.
Okay.
So if you have enough underlying coverage, the umbrella policy then will kick in to help cover. In fact, there's an example of a member who didn't have a claim, but started feeling nervous. This member owned the home for over 20 years, improved the property, put in a swimming pool, and so the property value was covered in all of the annual reviews. The liability amount, though, just stayed the same through the course of those improvements. But the risk exposure has increased now. The family's more active. The family's going out and about on ATVs, and the ATVs are covered. And there's some coverage for liability if you run into somebody and hurt somebody. But the whole activity of the family increased so much that we needed to recommend an umbrella policy. In addition to what was going on in the family, the member has a business that started thriving. And the success of the business exposed the family to greater risks. And so a $1 million umbrella policy was not enough. We recommended $5 million umbrella policy, and the premium on that was less than the underlying homeowner's policy.
Oh, interesting.
Because of the way the excess layers of liability operate. Now you can see the protection that family has now.
Yeah.
And that's the value. And so when people say umbrella policy, sure, individual families should consider it in their insurance review with the agent, but also business owners should consider it as they expand their businesses and they're going further and further afield in their operations.
Yeah, well, and maybe something for all of us to consider. One thing that you brought up that kind of was a trigger for me was, as our quality of life maybe increases as we get those annual increases in pay or maybe promotions, right? Essentially more risk when it comes to insurance.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Look at you. What we're about as Mountain American Insurance Services is helping you protect your assets.
Yeah.
And preserve your future. Okay, so we want to make sure that if you have a loss, you're indemnified, meaning you're brought back to your original position, and that you had the capacity to increase your assets over time. Because those assets are either going to give you additional revenue through income or additional wealth through equity creation. And so we want to protect those things.
What are your thoughts on bundling? We talked about umbrella. What advantages does bundling have, or are there any?
There are. There are financial advantages, cost savings, and also advantages in how claims are handled. So if you can have your homeowners or renters insurance, car insurance, and any other items that you have, ATVs, RVs, motorcycles, if you can have them under the same carrier, there is a savings for having multiple policies. So the multi-policy discount can save you 15-20% sometimes. So there is the financial incentive to do that. There's also the incentive to have streamlined claims management. Okay, but sometimes you can't have the RV and the motorcycle in the same company that you have your home and your cars, right? So because of that, you may have to split it up. But bundling does give you a discount. Other ways to get a discount is through increasing your deductible.
Okay.
So if you have a $250 deductible and you increase it to $500, or increase it to $750 or $1,000, each incremental step that you increase your deductible reduces premium. So you're going to pay less premium because you are willing to bear the risk of the deductible.
Okay.
Okay. So if you do $1,000 deductible on your car insurance and you have a lot of frequency in your claims because you're driving in the city, it's probably not a good idea to have $1,000 deductible, because you're going to be bearing all the fender bender costs over the course of the year. However, if you have, very few accidents and you feel pretty comfortable with your own driving and your driving routes are probably more important than driving skills, right?
Yeah.
Depends where you're at. $1,000 deductible is going to reduce your premium. So bundle it, get a larger deductible, and you are controlling the premium cost.
Okay, I love that. Well, and just so much to think about. Like, never before have I considered my driving route, but on my driving route, I would never have $1,000 deductible, right? Just because of where I live and where I'm commuting to every day. That's just so interesting and something to think about. I love that. What other things are we needing to consider as consumers? Anything else?
Well, for personal insurance, we've covered a lot. For business insurance, we haven't covered much on that. Business insurance, like workers' compensation insurance, loss control, good practices, good safety practices in the business, which we help with. We have a loss control department available to us to help customers with engineering safety within their workplace. If you're a business owner and you have a fleet of 20 trucks, and say you're a landscape contractor, and you have these trucks running all over, safety of the safety of those drivers is going to really help control insurance costs.
Yeah.
It's going to help with your premium. But what about all the dings and dents that are happening to those trucks? Do you want to submit those to an insurance carrier every time? Maybe not. Maybe you say we're gonna bear that cost. We're gonna self-insure, so to speak. Even though I'm a relatively small landscape contractor. In fact, there's a member who is a landscape contractor. I won't say the name. Very interesting how his business has grown over the years and the number of trucks he's added to his fleet.
Yeah.
And the number of trailers and all the equipment that he's added. So the insurance demands have really increased, but doing When I say landscape contractor, this member he's doing mow and blow.
Okay.
Okay, so he's doing maintenance.
Yeah.
He's not fixing sprinklers. He's not installing sprinklers. Well, within that world, there are things he can do to control his expenses. Workers' compensation insurance is one of them, and controlling claims and controlling accidents, really, controlling the safety, managing that to some degree. As he has grown his business, by the way, his revenues has increased, his payroll has increased, his risk exposure has increased, so his insurance premiums have increased. And the way that we have recommended to help him control his insurance cost has been to identify carefully what class of business he is in. So we found out that he started installing sprinklers, and we also found out through reviews that he started installing other types of equipment for municipalities. Okay, that's interesting.
Okay.
Well, it's a small business owner.
Yeah.
When you're a small business owner, you look for ways to make money.
Yes, you're happy to take on the work.
Yeah, so you have a crew doing the mow and blow, but then you have another crew doing these other types of installations. By bifurcating the class codes for that business and underwriting carefully what he's doing as a business, it helps reduce the insurance cost and increase his protection because he's appropriately covered now. The ability of an agent to review, to assess, to advise, and to assist, that's where the power comes in of having Mountain American Insurance Services as a business owner or as, just a family.
Okay, I love that. Well, and business is really important because obviously as business owners, just on all the examples you've given, a lot of risk there, right?
Yeah.
Not only for you as an individual, but also for your business. But I am curious about some of these add-on policies. I mean, in Utah, we always are talking about the big earthquake that's going to come that may or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And getting that earthquake coverage, in other areas, we need to be worried about floods because of the crazy winter we had. Any recommendations or tips you have on some of those add-on policies as well? Yes.
In order for us to be good advisors, to really guide the insurance customer in making decisions, we need to present as much as we can that's appropriate for that family or that business.
Okay.
One example is a member who is insured in Utah with a company called Auto Owners, and they have become empty nesters, but they have a lot of grandkids that visit. And the family home, their home, through the assessment we learned is, it's not a pioneer home. It hasn't been around forever, but it is considered a family home. And the individuals, the couple that had this home, they want it to be available for future generations. So understanding that brought into play an umbrella policy and additional coverage for flood and additional coverage for earthquakes. And the way the deductibles work on the earthquake and the flood are different than the rest of the policies.
Okay.
But bringing those additional coverages in helps that family achieve its goal, protect this asset for future generations.
Okay.
So an earthquake is relatively unlikely, but you talk to a geologist, it's very likely.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And floods are relatively unlikely in most places in Utah, but this past season we have seen tremendous damage from floods. Fortunately for these members of the credit union, they received these policies in 2020 in this example, and so they were prepared. Fortunately, they didn't have any damages. One window well, in talking with them, one window well in the basement filled up to the window and started dribbling into, over the windowsill into that bedroom, but they were able to stop it soon enough. So they didn't have any, flood damage. But that's an example of bringing in these extra policies. It's not just willy-nilly, hey, we have, you can go bankrupt paying for insurance premiums.
Absolutely. Yeah, you want your risk to be zero. You certainly could do it.
I mean, risk, you can be insurance poor, right? Just having so many different coverages. We don't advocate for that. We advocate for what is necessary to protect your assets for whatever your goals are.
Okay. So understanding what our goals are and making sure that our advisors are aware of those too is important.
A business owner can choose just to buy liability coverage only and just property coverage on their tools. They may not own a building. They may be leasing a building and be required under the lease agreement to provide coverage for the building itself or for the space that they're leasing, or it may not. So they have contractual obligations that can be reviewed by one of our account managers to decide if they can avoid insurance premium cost by contract. If they're not required by contract, then they can avoid some of the cost of the property insurance. However, if they are required by contract to provide insurance on the leased space, then our account manager can help them sort through that. Being aware of those things through a review can help you save money.
Okay.
You remember those old commercials? Who was it? Pay me now or pay me later?
Yes.
Was Fram oil filter, I think, right?
Yes.
Pay me now or pay me later. Change the oil filter now or change the engine later. There's a little bit of that going on in all service businesses. If you allow us to meet with you and review what's going on, then we can save you money and help protect your assets. Understanding that Mountain American Insurance Services can handle business insurance needs, I think, is an important element that members might want to be aware of, and other people in the community, that we can help with businesses. And we can help with the home and auto insurance and those things.
So when we're talking about these tips, Dennis, and what we can do as consumers, tell me about discounts.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. You don't necessarily think about discounts with insurance.
No, because I don't want to be discounted. I want to have full coverage, right?
Correct.
We don't want discounts
but
that way.
But on the premium, are there credits? I think the term of art in the industry would be to achieve some discounts. What credits could an underwriter apply to your risk profile?
Okay.
That's a great question. I think for any insurance consumer, when they're dealing with their agent, they should ask for discounts and credits.
Okay.
For example, people don't necessarily know about credits for having good grades. So you have teenage drivers and they have good grades. And I'm not talking about straight A's, just reasonably good grades. That can apply as a credit to reduce the premium.
Well, that's going to help me in my parenting. Get good grades, we get a discount.
Yeah. You make them feel guilty.
There you go.
For all the money you're spending on them. In a home or apartment, but in a home in particular, if you have alarm systems, smoke alarms, CO2 alarm, does any kind of protective system that you have, whether it's just like Simply Safe or just your own Home Depot purchased self-installed smoke alarms, deadbolts, so all the security measures in the home, if you can ask as a consumer, if you can ask the agent, okay, what discounts are available to me on my homeowner's insurance, on my car insurance, what discounts are available to me for having, how I operate my ATVs, for example. You could get discounts for not smoking, not drinking, as mentioned earlier. You can get discounts for not driving for business, but only for pleasure. You can get discounts for driving fewer miles. I mean, legitimately, if your mom is 75 years old and she only drives from her home to Harmon's and from her home to church, she doesn't drive very many miles.
Right.
Noting that with the agent can help legitimately lower the premium. Why? Because the risk has been lowered.
Okay.
You talked about your driving routes.
Yeah.
Right? The driving routes increase the risk. You control that, you can have lower premium. There are many discounts available for businesses, but let's just focus as an insurance consumer for families. Ask your agent,
Okay.
what discounts are available to me? I have a bachelor's degree. I drive 8,000 miles a year only. I only drive for personal business, not for any other purpose. I have smoke alarms. I have security system. I'm signed up with Simply Safe. I do not have a dog. I do not have a trampoline, or I do not have a Rottweiler, and I do not have a trampoline. I do not have a swimming pool, or my swimming pool's in place, but I have a wrought iron fence around it with a locked gate. So all these types of conditions can reduce the premium by applying underwriting credits.
Okay, awesome. And then especially important if you have a business, I'm sure that the discount options even are more, there's a more opportunity. I would be sure.
There are opportunities.
Yeah.
Actually, I think there's more opportunities for underwriting credits for a personal insurance profile. Nonetheless, for businesses, yes, the same types of things: security measures, safety measures, training programs. All the things you think about when you see the WCF commercials about workers' comp and safe insurance and safe practices in the workplace. They all give rise to credits and discounts.
Awesome. So something to keep in mind as we're sitting down with our agents.
Yes. And, Mountain American Insurance Services account managers and agents, all licensed, they're trained and they desire to do this, but they're trained to ask these questions.
Okay.
Because, we want to see value for the premium, but we also want to see our customers have as low as premium as possible. If the premium's too high, you're not going to be a customer for real long.
Right.
And we desire our customers to be customers for a long time. And so we're incented, along with you as our client, to find the best coverage for the lowest price possible.